talk about where the game is going to go after DLC Seattle.
Yes.
Because right now, all right, we know that Paris Continentals is in December. We know that North American Continentals is in January, and we know that Worlds is in March. But those are 3 theoretically invite-only tournaments. And that, that itself right now. So if October, in 2 weeks at this point, something like that, 2-3 weeks, if that's our last chance to play in a public DLC, and we know that there's nothing scheduled all the way through Worlds, we're talking like 5, 6, maybe 7 months of no official organized play DLCs.
And theoretically, the only public, assuming that Continentals is not massive,
right?
And it's going to be difficult to do anything for the event itself. Let's say I don't know about side events, but if you were to say anything for the event itself, whether that's Continentals or Worlds, theoretically, the only other thing outside of what we kind of know about with like them saying things like we're going to be at PAX Unplugged and we don't know what that means. Really, the only other thing is going to be the Azerite Sea Set Championships between now and whenever of the schedule we even know about, right? Like even through Worlds, right? Like there isn't. So like as it stands right now, nothing in February as it stands right now at all.
Actually, nothing.
Maybe another set in February. Is that
in November, February? December, January, February? Yeah.
So another set in. So Azerite Sea Set Championships probably in January.
Yes.
Because December is too fast, I would assume.
Yeah, it's January. Yeah.
And then new set in February.
Yep.
Which would be legal for Worlds for the 5.
Well, maybe.
Right.
Maybe it might not be. So maybe, right? Like,
right.
Depending on, we don't know the actual dates for Worlds, right?
No, only like
if Worlds is like the first week of March, then it would not be legal for it.
I would hope it would be, but who knows? Right. So yeah, and then that set 7 championship in like April or May.
Probably April, yeah.
Right. And that's it.
Yeah. So what you're telling me right now is that for 6 months we might get 2 sets, and to our current knowledge, there will not be a large public tournament that's officially sponsored by Organized Play of Ravensburger.
That would be correct. As we know all information right now, yes, I would agree with you.
All right. So as a competitive player, how does that make you feel?
Not good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not good from a first party perspective and forces me to lean on third party events, which we have no control over. Now, you could argue holiday season, not a big deal. I can take off December. Who cares?
Right.
But it's more around the fact that like I had such a good time with this DLC. I mean, trust me, I'm exhausted. Like I will say, like flying into some of these locations on a Thursday and flying out on a Sunday night is very exhausting. And it's very like rapid fire. Like you get back from one and then you immediately, I feel like I'm immediately turning around and going to another one.
It's like a week there and then a week recovery and then maybe like a week of preparation. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, I'm getting on a plane.
Right.
I'm going.
And that doesn't even count like the set championships in between.
Right. Like, so like this month and then July are like the extremes where you're playing in these 5-6 round tournaments every weekend. And then you're getting on a plane, you're traveling across the nation, you're playing in a DLC. So it's so funny because it really, and I know you're going to probably get this, but it really reminds me of like old school Magic, where it felt like you had to play every single weekend to like be in the know and be a part of it and like just be in the grind. And for me, I don't even want to be I don't want to be a part of the grind like that anymore. Like I got kids, I got a full-time job. Like I'm not a college student anymore with infinite free time. Like it doesn't exist anymore. So during these months specifically, it is so much like investment of time to the game that when you get out of them, you're just like, holy, like I can't wait for Seattle, right? Like I'm excited to go to Seattle, but the truth is that I can't wait for like October 29th. And I'm like, all right, we get some time. You're still muted. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
No, I'm with you. It is definitely a grind, but I mean, it's what we wanted, and it's odd. Like, and then you turn around, like we said, and it. I don't think it's not gonna go away, but it seems like it's delayed.
Yeah,
and that's really where my fears are. I assume this is where you're going with talking about it, but like if I'm jumping ahead, let me know. But like
it's like this worry that for me, if we're just being bluntly honest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sold out every single DLC within minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking, I said this in last week, 9,000 tickets, 9,000 plus realistically tickets have been sold to Disney Lorcana Challenges, like within minutes of them going on sale. And that's just North America. Like EU is another, I think the number is 7,000 for them. It might be 8,000 for them. I think all of their events were 2,000 player events in theory. So like you're talking 17,000 tickets sold in minutes, instantly. That's a lot of revenue, right? Like that's a lot of players showing up to these tournaments, planning out and participating in these events, that all of a sudden you're going to go from 17,000 to less than 100.
Theoretically, yeah.
That's a lot. That's a big dip off. So then you start to worry, like, if there is not a DLC, if there's not a destination event where we're playing for Golden Mickeys, where we're playing for Innovites, how much is the top level competitive player going to remain invested? And is that important? Right? Like that's the real question, is like, is that even important for the game's success? And I think that that's really where the debate kind of starts going. But for me, I understand that the audience for this game might not all be about fully competitive, but it is very more likely that competitive drives sales, and drives engagement. So things like that's where I become worried. I become worried that if we do wait until late May or June of next year to have some official organized play event that everyone can attend, I do worry about it. I do worry that like nationals or continentals is way too small, and that LCQ might be might be a myth at this point. We still have no information. We have no idea what it's going to be. Yeah. Maybe it turns out that it's at the Anaheim Convention Center, and all of a sudden it's great because there's enough room for everybody. But if it's not, and it's at like some small hotel conference room, I think there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be pissed off. Worlds, like where is Worlds gonna be? Like, is it gonna be a very small environment? 16 players, 32 players. Like, how do we get invited to Worlds? Like, what if a competitive player, if I can't make it, if I don't qualify for Continentals, does that mean I'm like theoretically disqualified for Worlds? Like, is there just no way for me to gain entry?
It sounds that way, but who knows?
That seems harsh, right? Like, I don't know. Like,
sure.
Like, let's just say players that are just coming in the game right now. Like, we have a brand new set coming out, right? So set 6 is coming out. When set 6 comes out, there will be no way to publicly gain invite to Continentals, possibly, which means there is literally no way to gain access to Worlds. That seems preposterous. If we have 2 sets that come out between now and Worlds, and you tell me that there's no way to gain invite to Worlds, I mean, that's not good either, right?
I mean, I'm old school, so like I like that type of A, qualifying for B, qualifying for C, but I do know that in some games, World is more of like a marketing thing where it's like limited people.
Right. Like if we look at Pokemon,
yeah.
I mean that's like an event, like that is like a full-fledged event that basically everyone can attend. And I do feel like, if we're comparing the games and like atmospheres of games, then I have to think that we're closer to Pokemon than we are to Magic in theory.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we have that same vibe of like a player base. So to me, I would love for Worlds to be a celebration. I think I mean, we're at Disney World, for crying out loud. Like that's where it's
Mhm.
scheduled to be. What better way to celebrate the first year of competitive play than if not having a large scale event for everyone to be a part of and participate in? So I mean, I hope that that's what happens, but at this current juncture, we have no idea.
Mhm.
We have no idea. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm very, very worried about the conversation of Ravensburger taking a step down in promoting these public tournaments. And, you know, I'm very worried about Continentals as just like honestly, as a player, I'm very worried about it. Like, yeah, I participated in potentially six DLCs and not qualified. Like that could happen. But even as a content creator, like, this channel's whole focus is competitive play. If there's a world that like we can't even be at Continentals to be a part of the atmosphere, to be with our teammates that are there, I mean, that sucks too, in all honesty. So I don't know. But with that, it does spread opportunity, right?
Yep. Mhm.
So opportunity is third-party events. And, before Ravensburger announced, there was a couple third parties that were definitely into it. SCG is one of the first. Last year in February, we kind of promoted SCG a little bit here and there. And in Hartford, there was 128 players. In Philadelphia, there was 175 players. So you had these very large events at SCG Con. Ironically, the moment DLC was announced for Disney Lorcana Challenges, their numbers completely plummeted. I mean, honestly, this month's event, which was like I think last weekend, it had 28 players. So there has been a huge dip in success for SCG Con. So much so that they were 5Ks, now they're only 2Ks, and I don't blame them. Right? If they can't get 100 players to show up, they can't be a 5K. It just doesn't make any sense
No, totally.
analytically. But this does breed opportunity for SCG Con as, hey, if we're going to be committed to hosting a tournament every month, and you're local enough, like if you're in the Ohio area and this is going on, now obviously there's a little bit of hesitancy here. This is opening weekend for Azurite C, which is kind of cool, right? Like he has the ability to play with the cards opening weekend. SCG is also very good at fulfilling orders, so if like you're worried about not getting your cards, you can put a pre-order in with SCG and you can pick up on site. So there's that, which is very good and very powerful, I think. But yeah, as a company that's been around forever, I will say that SCG Con Baltimore for SCG itself was very successful. The like kind of like the reinvigorating moment for Magic the Gathering with their new system for qualifications and things like that. So they had an 1,800 person Magic tournament, which for the most of the year they were like sitting around 300 and 400 players. So that was very big. So hopefully that kind of might give them the opportunity to breathe more into these other games on here, like Star Wars, like Flesh and Blood, and like Lorcana. But if this is all that's going on, you can see in the top right corner here, I'll make this a little big, but we have, this is telling you that for the next 4 months, this is where they're going to be. That, hey, there's going to be a tournament in Columbus, there's going to be a tournament in Atlanta, there's going to be a tournament in Portland and in Charlotte. So you can kind of bet on Lorcana events being hosted at least there. So we now know, like, hey, if we want to plan for that, we can go and participate in SCG Con because at least we know that this is going to be a competitive nature tournament that competitive players might show up to.
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously America only. Like,
Sure.
I mean, I will say that, like, I think that, I mean, there's some massive events in France, for example.
Right.
And I think what I'll give SAG credit for is continuing to light any type of torch.
Right.
And these are large, I guess you would call them regional. I don't even know what you want to call them, like events that we know are going to occur in that
Right.
area.
Right.
And I just think it's a perfect time to support these type of third party endeavors because, and I get it. Like, I obviously get that. Like, while there were DLCs, you had to make a choice in a month. Like we just talked about the grind and all that kind of stuff. But when there's not, I think it's a perfect time to support these kind of things. And I guess I kind of feel bad for like uh somebody like SCG because they may get an increased attendance from November to, what do we say, March, and then it drops off again. Like they're never going to be able to like put their finger on the pulse of like how this is actually doing because it's such an ebb and flow depending on how first party organized play goes. And
Yeah.
I know it's not that way in other games. So I mean, I'm going to make any attempt to support them in the months that we have open. But like you just put on the screen, like things like the CCS $8,000 tournament are a huge way that you can, support it. And I know people fly to these types of events and things like that. I wouldn't look at this. I would look at these types of options when there's no DLCs to play in as good third party options.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what we're looking at, right? Like this is a tournament series that I think at its peak had 250-ish players, maybe a little bit less than that. But I do think that one of these tournaments this year was around that area. It was between the 200 and 250 players.
Yep.
I think the last one was just shy of 200 players, maybe like 170 or something like that. But this is kind of that same thing. It's like, hey, this might be all that's going on in December to this scale, right? We're going to talk about another event in a moment here, but this is to the scale that we're at. And this is a great event for people that are qualified for Continentals that are going to be going to Anaheim in January. Like this is a month after release of Azerite Sea. There is not going to be any set championships yet, more than likely. So we're going to have this weekend at Target to get your best tournament experience before Continentals for at least North America. Now, obviously, this is also a week after Paris. So you're going to have the information from Paris that comes out, and now North America is going to be able to play ball and say, like, okay, like let's see what's going on over there. How can we adapt? How do we attack the metagame that they've now created, they have now set? So there's a lot of those things going on too. I think it's all very interesting. And in all honesty, this is the time to shine for me. Like I think that this is like, hey, if I'm going to be successful as a tournament organizer, as a third party tournament organizer, you have to take this opportunity and attack it. You have to, because
totally.
If this CCS can get 500 people, I don't know. I do think they cap at like 264. But if they can cap,
sure,
that's great. Like that's exactly what we're hoping for the game, because what it means is that it's not only about Disney Lorcana Challenges. And I totally understand as a player that is spending 5 days at a location for the DLCs, why like I can't also commit 3 days of this tournament in a month. Like if this
right.
when in August when we had DLC Toronto, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, I can't remember exactly, the CCS event happened. I'm like, dude, there's no way I can commit to that. Like it's unrealistic.
Yep.
Like I don't have enough time in the day to commit to that. But in December, when there's nothing going on, like, yeah, I could probably go to this tournament. I would be excited to go to this tournament. I'd be excited to play with Azerite Sea in a competitive nature in preparation for Continentals and things like that. So I think that this is where it's going to have to excel. If I were CCS, I would definitely try and fire up another tournament in February. Like just fire it off again, personally.
Like what I think is interesting is, like we said, as a tournament organizer, not that I'm a tournament organizer, but if I was a tournament organizer and I was sitting there and saying, where do I fit into this scheme of the game?
Right.
And like, if I knew we just got done saying, unfortunately, we're not going to have much to play in for 6 months, right? We got done saying that, right?
Yeah.
But as a large, potentially regional tournament organizer, if I was able to say to myself, I know this is an opportunity because I know this is the schedule for 2025 or something like that. Let me find the holes and fill it in with something else.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect. But we we don't know what the holes even are because we don't know like what the Swiss cheese looks like now. Like
Right.
so like that's the
Right.
thing. Whoa, look at the graphics going on. Look at the
Yeah, man, it's moving.
flash going on there.
It's
I don't
moving.
know what's still flash nowadays. I'm so old.
Hilarious. So this is like the only hint of a Ravensburger sponsored tournament.
Yep.
And we don't even know that that's a fact just yet.
Mhm.
But we're fortunate because we get PAX Unplugged in our backyard
Yes.
December 6th through 8th. And we know that Ravensburger is on site, and we know that they have a play area. So all the signs point to there will be a Ravensburger exclusive tournaments there. To our best educated guess, they will be very similar to the Gen Con tournaments, where they'll be playing for the convention center playmats. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think that the only opportunity that North America has had to win the convention center playmats of 2024 was at Gen Con. I don't think there was any other conventions this year that hosted them. So that is a very exclusive opportunity if that is what happens.
I don't know what happened at Gamma, for example, but that wouldn't be open to the public anymore.
No, I don't think it's open at all. Yeah. I don't think that they gave them away at like D23 or anything like that. So yeah, I think that it was only Gen Con, for North America at least.
Yeah, probably.
The cool thing about this is that PAX Unplugged, to my knowledge, has never sold out until like literally the week of. I think last year it sold out the week of.
Yeah.
So there is that, right? There's a little hesitancy, like understanding like this is I think it's the 6th year for PAX. It might be the 5th. I think it's the 6th though. What?
I think they didn't have it 1 year because of COVID, right?
No, they still had it. It was like it was like the perfect bubble where that was like the first convention back.
Even in 2020?
In 2020, that was like the first convention that was like, okay, it's like full mask and everything like that, and you had to have your vaccines and things like that. But it did happen. Like, so they never skipped the year. So yeah, I think this might be the 5th year. It could be. It was 20. I don't know. Maybe it is 6. Regardless, this is an event that's been growing every single year. It's an event that it's my favorite convention every year because it's in Philadelphia. B, I think it's like it's basically a mini Gen Con at the end of the day, which is great. So all right, started in 2017. This is year 7. Holy shit. Okay, that's cool. I mean, straight up blown away. I am very excited for this event in general. Like, I would go to this if Ravensburger was not there. Scott would not. Just spoilers.
But, I would not. That's true.
But I am very excited to be a part of PAX Unplugged. So if there is a world where you can play for convention mats, it's a good opportunity to play the game, especially if you're on the East Coast and you can drive to this. Like if you're within like a 3-4 hour drive. If you're crazy like Ben and Melissa, you'll drive 6 hours. Nunez, we actually, a fair amount of Forbidden Mountain members are coming to PAX Unplugged just to kind of like spend the weekend together, not even knowing what like Lorcana is going to be represented yet. We have no idea. So yeah, I'm very excited for this. This is definitely another good opportunity to play the game, and hopefully we're playing for 2024 playmats. I am like fingers crossed about that.
And I do know last year, weren't all the events capped at like 64 players?
Well, there was only 2 of them.
2 like
events. There was only 2 events. It was the starter deck event and the best of one event. That was it.
Yeah.
And that was also the first official constructed tournament for Ravensburger. Yeah. Technically, it was the first official before DLCs or before set championships. Shout out to Pave. He won the event, guys. In case you don't know. All right, Pave won. So yeah. Hopefully we get something similar this year that works out, and makes a lot of sense. That's at least what I'm hoping for. Whether or not that happens is all debatable, but that's like another thing that's going on before the end of the year that you can potentially play Azeroth Sea at also. And I think the last thing I want to touch on, Scott, is what you can do at your store level.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, here we are. this is the Encounter Commons game. It's the game that we commonly, or the store that we commonly stream our events that we play at. Well, we talk to Encounter all the time. They're like, hey, we want to commit to this, and we're going to have a $1,500 prize event the opening weekend of Azerite Sea. And this is another event that we're going to be at. We're going to stream it. I haven't confirmed yet with Dick, but I think Dick Burns is going to come up, and me and him are going to commentate this event. And even though this event will only be capped at 48 players, because that's all the store can hold, that's still not a bad tournament, to have at your event. So as a player in the game that's competitive, that like wants to still have these active tournaments, I really need to like express the concept of, hey, go to your tournament, like go to your store and say, hey, what can we do to draw people from an hour away, from 2 hours away during this down period? Like, if there's no DLCs that people are going to, and you think that you can draw people from 2-3 hours away to host a $1,500 tournament or a $2,000 tournament, like, I mean, if you can go bigger, hey, go bigger. If you have a bigger space, I look at us in our area, we have Top Deck Games that can hold like 150 players if it wanted to. Those are the stores that I would go to and say, hey, like this might be an opportunity to host this type of an event, because people are going to be looking to play with these cards. Like if set 6 comes out and you tell me as a competitive player that's not qualified for Continentals that there's like no events to play with my cards, I'm going to be looking for them.
Yep.
And this is a great opportunity for stores to take advantage of that. And I think that's kind of what the whole purpose of this conversation was like, hey, there might be a loss of Disney Lorcana Challenges, but it breeds opportunity for stores, for third-party organizers to kind of attack that. And that's kind of where I wanted to be, like,
And that's what makes a game successful is that you have the options, and like it's not fully dependent on either side. Mm-hmm. It's not fully dependent on first party or third party. Like the game took off tremendously when set championships and DLCs were announced.
Agreed.
But it's not like it was failing before that. I mean, Miami had 250 people, etc. And like they're really and props to Ravensburger. They jumped on the popularity of third-party events as proof of concept that as an SCG as well, that proof of concept deals.
240 players at PPG, 130 players at SCG, 175 players at SCG. Like honestly, right after SCG Philly is when DLCs were announced. It's when set champions were announced. So they were definitely looking at them. They're like, okay.
They thought 512 people was going to be enough.
They did.
And then like, hey, it blew up.
Proof of concept is we'll be happy if we sell 512 tickets.
Right.
And they sold them in 44 seconds, and they're like, oh shit.
Right. And then 2,000 sold out.
And then 2,000 sold in 45 seconds. So like,
like my big thing is like, I definitely agree with you. Support the large tournamentizers, support your local tournamentizers, but like, I'm just doing a plea to Ravensburger to give us a schedule and understand what your place is in the TCG world and how flooded of a space it is right now.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna tack on a little bit. Can we get more information about international play?
Yeah.
Honestly, I want to go to Europe so badly. Like I want to have an excuse to go there, but when we're less than 2 months from EU nationals and I still have no idea where it is, it's very difficult. Like, and I get it. I know there's approval processes. I understand them. What I'm begging you for is to start the approval processes now. Let me know what is going to be happening, where we're going to be at. I don't think, honestly, and this is like a little tick too. There's 1,000-person tournament happening this weekend in France, right? Like that's what's going on. I don't actually have the information. I know that you sent it to me, but I don't have it in front of me.
It's next week, I think. Right?
It's next weekend. There's 1,000-person tournament in France that's happening next weekend. I didn't know about it. I wish I had known about it, because there's a very reasonable chance that we could have had a conversation like, hey, like, do you want to go to that? Like, do you want to do that? Like, we could have that conversation and be like, yeah, that would be cool. I think that's something we could do. Or like, obviously in this month with DLCs, probably not a reasonable thing, but if it was in November, if it was in December, yeah, like if I had known the information for Paris a month ago, there's a good chance that I would have went. So I think that you should make international play more inviting. I really would. I think that it shouldn't just be like, oh, hey, this is a tournament just for France. And the same thing for us. Like, hey, this isn't just a tournament for people in Atlanta. Like, this is a global tournament that if you want to show up and play in Atlanta and play in Dallas and play in Seattle, like that's the inviting that you should have. We knew about Seattle in April, right? Like we had 6 months to plan for it. I would love that same respect and being like very well aware of like what's going on, where they're going to be at, and if we can like really set up a way to go, because I really want to go. So yeah, obviously this is another movement of like, hey, if you guys like Disney Lorcana Challenges, you should start letting people know that, like on social media, start that trend and say like, hey, we really want these. Like we don't want to wait a half a year to play in another one. Especially in a world where they weren't guaranteed. We had 2 events that were 1,000 players and that was it. So 2 were 1,000 and 4 were 2,000. But hey, there were people that didn't get into one of them.
Yeah.
Like obviously I'm very fortunate. I got in all 6 of them. That might not have happened. I was very fortunate and I was able to. But there are players that didn't get into any of them. And now you're telling them like, oh, I didn't get any of the first 6 and I might have to wait 6 more months to try again. Not a good feeling.
I just think they need to understand that like it's beyond strike when the iron's hot.
Yeah.
Like there are downturns in other games right now. Like we could talk about it forever. There's downturns in Magic right now. There's downturns in Star Wars right now. There's downturns in like other games right now. And this is like, and when I go to a DLC, when I went to Vegas, like last time, like you look around the room and it's like packed with people, with thousands of people.
3,000 people playing the game.
Yeah. And like, it would take, like you said, tickets that sold out in less than a minute.
Yeah.
So like, I just hope they are listening to this type of stuff.
I mean, it's hard not to look at it and say, wow, they absolutely exceeded expectation. Like it's like without a shadow of a doubt, when you say I instantly sold 9,000 tickets in probably like a sum total of less than 5 minutes across 6 events, it can't be like, guys, like it's just like you got smacked in the face with it. Like I pray that we don't have to wait 6 more months for another Disney Lorcana Challenge. I pray that we make Worlds a celebration. I mean, I hope that we do have the ability to be at Continentals. Like these are all things I'm very, very worried about from a Disney, like from a Ravensburger standpoint. But again, it's at the same point. Like we've been kind of saying this entire half segment is like, this is a perfect opportunity for stores to tackle the game, for third-party organizers to gotta go to that next level and present a way for people to play with cards that they might not have. If you tell me that I don't have anything to play for with Azurite Sea, I'm going to be looking for it. If you tell me whatever set 7's name is, when it comes out, if there's no structured tournament to go to, I'm going to be looking to go to one. So I think it's definitely a strike while the iron's hot. I really do.
And they've been very open to feedback. Like they've overcorrected for the card distribution issue, for example, that there was when the game first started.
Yeah, you can now get boxes on Amazon for $80.
Right. At certain times.
Right.
I have a case sitting right there. I think it's actually more than I don't. What did I buy? 10 boxes? I don't know.
10 boxes. Yeah, it's fine.
There's 10 boxes sitting right there. They're very open to feedback. Like there are going to be missteps, and there are going to be, but the opportunity here is just so great that I just hope they're listening to like players like us and like what's going on and really taking stock. Like, to be honest, like this year has been incredible. The DLCs have been incredible and well ahead of schedule. Like in my opinion, like they really put it together fast, efficiently, and impressively,
and have run them perfectly. Honestly, like huge shout out to PVG. Obviously, I have not attended a European. I can't give anything to them, but from a viewer aspect, it looks incredible. It looks great, and I wish I could attend. I wish I I wish I could be a part of that atmosphere with that community as well.
Like, they're not 100% perfect. Like,
No.
we could talk about this. I'm sure we'll talk about it other times with format and things like that. But like within the first year, like what was it? Was it 3 or there was only the first one was only 3 sets, right? Like Atlanta was still only 3 sets, right?
Yeah.
Like for that fast, for that level of competition to come out is pretty incredible to me personally. Coming from other, coming in my TCG history, but like what you need to understand is like
How
we
many
just
sets
live in a
was the
different
first
world.
WoW Worlds?
There were 3 sets out for that too.
Okay, I was just curious.
But it was a little slower.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the sets were not 3 months for sure.
But it wasn't. But we didn't have we might have had like one. We did have Darkman fairs also. So okay, fine. So it's similar to that. But I'm still impressed. Like I just didn't, coming from a company that like is new to the space.
Yep.
I was impressed that they were able to get things together so quickly, because I think that wasn't what they initially intended to happen.
I think we should be fortunate that we played in 5 DLCs already. There's a world where we were not, like, we would be going to the first one this month.
Yeah.
I think there was like an actual world where they were going to wait for a full year of of game release to then say, hey, we're going to do a couple of these things at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We crushed that. Like, all expectations exceeded again. Like, we just absolutely knocked it out of the park. So, as a social movement again, I would be like, hey, let's do everything possible to not wait a half a year to play in another one of these tournaments.
I agree.
But with that, Scott, I think we crushed it. I think my only real complaint is that Mirabelle is the worst card in the set, and I wish we weren't playing for it every weekend.
Very fair.
And I just please just make the card playable for the next set. Like, make me want to go to set championships in January, please. Listen, I don't want to work on Saturdays, guys. Give me an excuse not to. No, but seriously, I can't wait for Seattle. I'm very excited for it. And it's like one of those like happy, sad moments of like, hey, this is going to be the last one this year. We're not going to have another DLC this year to attend.
Yeah.
And that is a bit sad, It's as much as I'm looking to breathe and know that I don't have to like pack my bags every 3 weeks again. It's sad. So hopefully, I really want to get out there and pressure the moment of like, Ravensburger, please don't take it like as a net negative. Like, look at it as like, hey, we are begging almost to have a reason to show up in March. Have a reason to show up in January and be a part of this atmosphere, be a part and participate in these events that we've just grown to love, and that's what I'm really hoping for.
Agreed.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Scott. Chat, you guys were completely awesome. Thank you guys so much. All the new followers, subscribers, and things like that, you guys were awesome. If you haven't yet, hit the like button for me if you're watching this later or after the fact. And if you enjoyed the vibe here, if you like this type of conversations, let me know in the comments of all those points that maybe we missed. And thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you.